Every month I release a spending overview of the month before, kind of detailing how I've spent my money and sharing whatever is coming up in the following month. And every time I post a video, people are like, well, how are you still able to spend money while unemployed, and have no income coming in? And so that's why I'm making this video today. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Danielle, and I make videos on my first-gen experience. And right now that looks like navigating unemployment, living with my in-laws, being newly married, and thinking about how I'm merging my finances, and just like everything in between. So if that stuff interests you, hit the subscribe button and support this channel. But yeah, let's get into it because, well, let's share some history in order to help you understand the now. I think it's important to share that I am someone who is completely debt-free, myself and my husband, because like I said, I am married. And that is because in 2017, I came across FIRE and the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. And I had been, I share more about my money journey in a separate video, but just a big highlight is, I kind of realized that after a year of working full time, I had no savings. I hadn't reduced my student loan debt, and I didn't know how to invest. Growing up in a household where, we did talk about, saving money, making money, investing, but from a perspective of, like many people might be able to relate being children of immigrants, it was investments tied to physical assets, right? So my parents were very much, you need to get into real estate. You need to be a real estate investor. And so that's kind of where the investing kind of stopped. And so learning about these concepts, also learning that debt, not that debt is bad or good, but like learning that I can not have my student loan debt forever was also something that was new to me. And as soon as I kind of found out about it, I said, okay, well, I'm going to tackle this. And so in 26 months, by the end of 2019, I was 100% debt-free, no student loan debt, no other kinds of debt. And I also had a positive net worth. So it wasn't at zero. Now I was at I believe it was 10K. So I had already started my investing journey. I had paid off my debt. And so I think that is a big context to provide. I also think the part about investing is important because by the time I was laid off, I had hit a 100K invested mile mark for me. And that was a big goal that I had been working towards. So just a disclaimer there. Let's fast forward a little bit to 2022 to kind of talk about how I ended up here. I took on my first six-figure salary at the tech company where I was ultimately let go from. So when I joined, I was making 148K, and that was the most I'd ever made in my life. And so I was so happy. I was like, let me just really this is now an opportunity for me to go all in on my investing journey. And so that was my mission. I was gonna use that increase in pay to invest more, to save more. And of course, yes, there were some lifestyle inflation instances, but it wasn't spending just as much as I was making. So that's another little disclaimer because I know not everybody makes six figures, and a lot of the times, especially when I first started my money journey, I kept seeing everybody making these high salaries, and at the time only making 55K. I was like, well, that's why they're able to do this, because they're making six figures. So I want to share that in case you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. She was making six figures. So the salary piece happened in 2022, but I also got engaged that fall. Yes, I'm forgetting when we got engaged. Yes, we got engaged that fall. So my boyfriend was then my fiance, and we're like, well, we're going to have a wedding in 2023. So maybe we'll open a sinking fund for wedding costs because we knew it was on us to pay for our wedding. And so we started at the end of 2022 saving for that wedding that we were going to have a year out. Also, at the end of the year in 2022 was when my company, the company I was at, went through their first round of layoffs. And having been in tech for 8 years, like layoffs are not a new thing for me, right? I had survived 2 layoffs at my last company. And so I knew that that was something that could happen any moment. But I think for a second, I had given in to like the fantasy of job security that when layoffs happened at my organization, I was like, oh, this can happen here too. My job is not secure. So I always kept one eye open and I was like, any moment now, this could go south. And in the end of January of 2023, now we're at 2023, I said, things aren't looking as rosy still. Maybe I should change up my investing strategy. Because, you know, as somebody who had been reading a lot of FIRE literature, you hear about this like invest and save 50% of your income. And so I was really like trying to do all of that in the investing side of things. But I also kept hearing that when a recession is happening, you want to have as much cash on hand as possible. I'm also like about saying having a lot of cash on hand because trust me, daughter of immigrants, I understand the whole too much cash on hand. But I was also thinking about the fact that, yeah, maybe it's important for me to just shift the investing to more cash savings. So that was something that I did at the end of January. I reduced my 401k contributions to, I think, 8% or 5%, and then was investing everything else into my emergency fund. Or at this point, I had an FU fund because I had an emergency fund and then I had an FU fund, as well as my wedding sinking fund. And that is something that just worked for me. Again, all of this is my experiences. I'm not telling you what to do. Do not listen to somebody on the internet and take advice word for word. Do whatever fits your life and make the decisions yourself. But that's what works for me. To be able to feel more secure, I said, let me put more money in my cash savings. Okay, fast forward spring. My fiance, Ari, now husband, wasn't working. And that's when we made the decision that in the summer, we should move out of our apartment and move into the basement, which would mean living with Ari's mom and stepdad. So living with my in-laws. And that was a decision we made because yes, Ari, the second half of this partnership, isn't getting income, is running through his savings, and my job is not so secure. And if I don't get laid off this summer, because that was a big thing that I was like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen at the start of the new quarter. And August is the start of that quarter. So if it happens, it's going to happen then. But if I do survive, then us moving to the suburbs just means, hey, maybe by the end of the year, we can buy a house. That was my mindset. I had no idea what was coming. Or maybe I did. No, I had a good idea. But we decided we're moving to the suburbs. We're going to live in the basement. We're doing it. And I think those were some of the big factors at play prior to my layoff that helped me feel better when August 2023 rolls around and I get on that Zoom call and I'm like, I know what you're about to tell me. Because last night I was telling myself that this is going to be the day I get laid off. And that is when they were like, we are parting ways. You are laid off. Your job is no longer here. And that's also when I found out that we were getting a nice severance package. So thing number 3 that happened to really help be able to be where I am right now. My severance package was pretty good. I got paid through August through September. And so technically I was really starting to not live with a paycheck on October 1st. Part of that severance package was also health insurance, which we know is expensive. Health insurance is a majority of our fixed monthly spending in this unemployment period. We pay like $900, almost $1,000 on medical things. And so the fact that I got health insurance for free until November 1st, like it stopped in November 1st, really did help the wallet. So severance package that included salary through September and insurance through October. Those two things. And when October 1st rolled around, when October 1st rolled around, I decided, one, obviously apply for unemployment benefits because that is something that you're paying into. So take advantage of your unemployment benefits. Make sure you file for unemployment. And so I did that October 1st. And I had some issues with unemployment, and it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be to receive my benefits. And so I was opening up a claim, trying to figure out unemployment. And this is also when I decided I would take a part-time job, small part-time job, few hours a week at an ice cream truck locally, because I was like, this is a fun thing to do. And who knows, maybe their corporate office will have a marketing job. So I had kind of other aspirations with taking that part-time job that didn't play out, but I'm still glad that I had that experience. So I did take on a part-time job that lasted, I want to say 6 weeks. It wasn't a long time that I did it, but I did it. And it helped with like covering gas and groceries, nothing wild. So while I was doing that, I was living still off of the severance package and my savings. And then finally in December, I ended up getting retroactively paid for all those weeks of unemployment and had the rest of my time left for unemployment, which they give you 26 weeks of unemployment checks. And so that was amazing. Glad I had all that sorted out. And that really was through March. So unemployment stopped March 31st. And Ari had also picked up a part-time job in the month of March. It was temporary, but it was helping, right? It was bringing in some money for us to buy groceries, to get gas, like all the basic stuff to pay for health insurance, which at that point, we were already paying on our own. And that leads us to where we are now, which actually, no, it doesn't. April was good because we had received our tax refund. And I know the whole like getting a nice tax refund is not really a flex in the FIRE movement because you're like, well, you paid more in taxes and you should be optimizing all blah, 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 whatever. I love to receive a nice tax return, and we did get a nice one. We got a big chunk of money back for our taxes, and that helped us too, right? So getting that was actually super helpful for us in kind of delaying fully taking out from our emergency fund. And so that's kind of where we are now. Now we're 100% just taking from our savings. We do still have like all the different sinking funds, but I don't immediately when I got laid off, I moved everything that was in that FU fund into the emergency fund to make it so that my emergency wasn't just 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which is the recommended amount, but that it was a 10-month emergency fund, right? So having that amount of money, I think obviously it comes from a privileged place because I do think that how much you make helps in determining how much you're able to invest or save or spend. That's obvious. I think it also helped to reduce our housing cost, which is one of the 3 top things people spend their money on: housing, transportation, and groceries or food. And so if we could reduce the cost of our housing, we only had like 2 categories where we had to track more closely and try to reduce the cost there. Getting a severance package, obviously that helps. Like, wow, okay, your company is paying you to lay you off. I mean, I wish I would have still had a job, but that was very generous. And this I didn't talk about, but the wedding, right? I made a video 2 weeks ago talking about the honeymoon spend, and we use the money to spend on a honeymoon based on the gifts that we got for the wedding. So that's not even, I haven't even talked about that, but that helps. If we didn't get that money, we would not have been going on a honeymoon. If we hadn't gotten, the severance package, I don't know that, who knows? If we were still living in our apartment, we probably wouldn't be taking any vacation. Things might have looked different, but I think all of those things factored into the ability to not have to dip 100% into the savings. And I think another thing that is important to mention is when you are joining a partnership, right? And for us, we chose to combine our finances. I had a partner who also didn't have student loan debt, who had no debt, and had the same net worth that I did. And so it wasn't like I was going into a partnership, a relationship, a marriage, having to acquire my partner's debt because he didn't have any. So it's all of that that really helped us not have to dip into our savings 100% when I first got laid off. And somebody too asked if I was pulling from savings outside of our sinking funds. And what I show on my monthly spend with me's are just the savings that we are planning on using for that month from our larger savings. We have not touched our investments. And yes, we do have investments that are not associated to retirement that we could tap into, but I really hope we won't have to get to that point. But yeah, everything has been taking it from the emergency fund and kind of moving it to whatever sinking fund we have for that month. Right now, we're using our emergency fund kind of like our paycheck, right? So money is coming from the emergency fund into the different things that we have to pay for. It's not like when I got laid off that I had a sinking fund for travel for 2023. That's not what happened. I had a sinking fund for my wedding, and I had an FU fund, an emergency fund. I think it is just a testament to going back, and I've probably shared this in previous videos, that the 3 months of living expenses for an emergency fund, it's a good starting point, but it's certainly not enough. Let's pretend that I did not get severance and I only had 2 months of living expenses in my emergency fund. That would have lasted me the rest of August, the rest of September. And if those unemployment benefits didn't kick in October 1st like they should have, what would I have done? So yeah, 3 months should be like just the starting point. And I know it really all depends on how much you're making, but it should be more like 6 months of living expenses, especially in this kind of job market that we're in, where it's taking people on average like 4 to 6 months to get a job. For me, it's taken me longer, right? And so prepare yourself for that. So I hope this gives you all some context behind how I'm still affording life, even though I have been unemployed for 10 months. It's a lot of different things that come into play with that. But yeah, if you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you don't already, and I will see you all next week.